"Don't get in the car," she yelled, her voice slicing through the rain. The Mafia boss froze mid-step, anger flashing in his eyes. No one ever shouted at him. But seconds later, when the explosion shattered the street, he realized the quiet black waitress hadn't disrespected him. She'd saved his life, and by morning, the underworld would never look at her the same way again. The neon sign outside buzzed in the rain, its red glow washing over the empty diner like a heartbeat. It was close to midnight, the kind of hour when only ghosts and desperate men stayed awake. Inside, Illa Brooks wiped the counter for the third time, her reflection blurring against the glass. She'd learned to love silence. Silence didn't insult her. Silence didn't spill coffee on her uniform. The bell above the door rang. A gust of cold air slipped in, followed by 3 men in tailored coats. They didn't belong here. The leader walked like someone who didn't need permission from the world. Sharp eyes, Italian leather, trouble, Dante Morelli. The name alone made the air heavier. He slid into the corner booth like a man sitting on his throne. His men spread out, claiming the diner as their own. Illa felt the tension before a single word was spoken. "Coffee," one of them said, snapping his fingers. She nodded and poured, her hands steady though her heart wasn't. The smell of rain mixed with cologne and danger. She served them quietly, but her eyes caught something strange. A black SUV idling across the street, headlights flickering twice. Then again. A rhythm, almost like a signal. She frowned. "You guys waiting on someone?" No answer, just a low laugh. Dante looked up at her. Sharp, amused, dismissive. "You always talk this much, sweetheart?" She didn't respond, just turned away. The diner clock ticked loud enough to feel like thunder. Every instinct in her screamed that something was wrong. One of the men checked his watch, muttered under his breath, "He's late." Then Dante stood up, tossing a few bills on the counter. "Guess that's my ride." He was already halfway to the door when she heard it. A metallic click outside. Her body froze. That wasn't a car door. That was the sound of a trigger. Illa's mind moved faster than thought. She slammed her hand on the counter and yelled, her voice cutting through the rain, "Don't get in the car!" The room went dead still. Dante turned, fury flashing across his face. "What did you just say?" Everyone stared. The rain seemed to stop. Her voice echoed against tile and glass. "Don't," she said again, quieter this time. "Get in that car." For 1 second, no one breathed. Then the world exploded. The blast outside shattered the windows, heat flooding in like fire. The impact threw chairs and glass across the diner. Dante hit the floor as his men pulled him down, covering him. Illa fell behind the counter, ears ringing. When the smoke cleared, the car outside was burning, orange flames licking the rain. Dante lifted his head, eyes wide, disbelief replacing arrogance. The black waitress he'd barely looked at had just saved his life. He stared at her through the falling ash. For the first time in years, the Mafia boss had no words. The diner smelled of smoke and burnt sugar. Glass crunched beneath Dante's shoes as he rose from the floor, coughing through the haze. His men shouted orders, but their voices sounded far away, muffled, distorted by the ringing in everyone's ears. Illa stayed crouched behind the counter, hands trembling, chest heaving. The ceiling fan turned slow, blades scraping, scattering ash like snow. She peeked over the counter just as Dante's bodyguard kicked the door open. Outside, the car was still burning. Flames danced across twisted metal, painting the night in orange and blue. A siren wailed somewhere far off. Dante turned toward her. His face was streaked with soot, his hair disheveled, eyes sharp as broken glass. "You knew," he said, voice low, dangerous. "How?" Illa swallowed hard. "I just heard something. Saw the lights flash. It didn't feel right." "That's not an answer." He stepped closer, the floorboards groaning under his boots. "You're not one of mine. So who sent you?" She straightened slowly. "No one sent me." For a moment, their eyes locked, his suspicion against her calm. The storm outside roared harder, wind slamming against the broken windows. One of the men shouted, "Boss, we gotta move. Could be a second hit." Dante looked toward the wreck. The car door hung open, flames licking the seats where he would have been sitting. His jaw tightened. He pulled a small silver medallion from his pocket, its surface cracked by the blast. He slid it into his coat and said quietly, "Get the girl." Illa flinched. "What? You saved my life. That makes you part of this now." Before she could protest, two of his men flanked her, guiding her out through the shattered doorway. The rain hit her face like needles. The street glowed with siren lights and fire reflections. They pushed her toward a black sedan still intact. Dante climbed in beside her, window cracked open just enough for smoke to drift in. The city blurred past. Neon, thunder, chaos. "Where are you taking me?" she asked. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he stared at her through the reflection of the glass, his tone even but sharp. "Someone tried to kill me. You knew it was coming, until I find out how. You don't leave my sight." Isla turned away, watching the city slide by. "You think I'm part of it? I think nobody saves a man like me for free." The silence that followed was heavier than the explosion. The hum of tires on wet asphalt filled the space between them. Finally, she spoke softly. "Maybe I didn't do it for you?" He frowned. "Then for who?" She met his gaze, unflinching. "For whoever's still innocent enough to deserve tomorrow." The car slowed. Dante's driver glanced in the mirror, uneasy. "Boss, you sure about taking her there?" "Drive." They turned onto a private road leading up a hill. Through the rain, iron gates appeared, tall, ornate, and closing behind them with a metallic thud. Beyond the gates stood a mansion lit by marble lamps and fear. Guards moved like shadows across the courtyard. Illa exhaled slowly. She had stepped out of the diner's small world and into another built on secrets. Dante opened his door, the sound of thunder rolling overhead. "Welcome to my home," he said without warmth. She hesitated at the threshold, soaked and shivering. "Don't worry," he added, eyes unreadable. "You'll be safe here, as long as I believe you." Behind her, the gates clanged shut. For the first time, Illa realized saving a man's life might have been the easiest part of the night. The mansion didn't feel alive. It breathed silence, the kind that listens back. Marble floors gleamed under soft chandelier light. Illa's wet shoes left faint prints that vanished almost instantly, like the house was swallowing her presence. Two guards led her into a room lined with glass cabinets and framed war photographs. At the center, Dante Morelli waited, his coat gone, sleeves rolled up, a bandage across his temple. "Sit," he said. She didn't move. "I'm fine standing." He smiled slightly. "You're not in a diner anymore." "I noticed," she replied. For a moment, neither spoke. The rain outside had quieted, leaving only the low hum of the generator. Then Dante leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "You see things other people don't," he said. "That's rare, dangerous. How long have you been watching me?" Illa blinked. "I don't even know who you are. Until tonight you were just another customer who didn't tip." He laughed once, not in amusement but disbelief. "And yet you shouted seconds before my car exploded. That's not coincidence." She crossed her arms. "Maybe it's conscience." "Conscience doesn't save a man like me." He rose from his chair and walked around her slowly, the faint smell of gunpowder still clinging to his clothes. "You work nights, you see things. Maybe you overheard the wrong name, wrong deal. Maybe someone paid you to warn me." "I don't take money from strangers," she said. He stopped behind her. "Everyone takes money from someone." Illa turned her head, meeting his reflection in the glass case beside them. "Maybe that's why you keep getting shot at." The room froze. One of the guards shifted uneasily, but Dante just stared at her, expression unreadable. "You've got nerve," he said finally. "I've got a job," she answered, "and you dragged me away from it." He returned to his chair, a slow smile ghosting across his face. "Fair enough." Silence stretched again, heavy, electric. Then Dante reached for a file on the desk. Inside were grainy photos. The diner, the aftermath, her face caught in the blur of the blast. He flipped them open for her to see. "That's what they're calling you now. The waitress who saved a mafia boss." "I didn't save a mafia boss," she said quietly. "I saved a human being. There's a difference." He looked at her then, really looked, as if hearing a language no one had spoken to him before. Finally, he exhaled. "You'll stay here tonight. My people will check your story. If you're clean, you walk away." "And if I'm not?" He gave a half smile. "Then I decide what to do with miracles." Illa hesitated, then nodded once. "I don't need your permission to leave, Mr. Morelli, but I'll take your word. For now." As she turned toward the door, his voice stopped her. "You ever think about why you looked outside just then?" She froze. "Instinct," she said. "My mother used to say God whispers before the world screams. I guess I still listen." Dante leaned back in his chair, watching her walk out. For the first time that night, he wasn't sure if he was questioning her or himself. In the hallway, Illa passed one of the guards whispering into a phone. She caught only 4 words. She wasn't supposed to know. The hallway outside Dante's office stretched long and cold, portraits of dead men staring down at her. Illa followed a guard toward the guest room, but her mind replayed those 4 words on loop. She wasn't supposed to know. Inside the room, a tray of untouched food waited. A silent camera blinked red in the corner. She ignored it. She sat on the edge of the bed, shoes still damp from the rain, and whispered to herself, "I should have stayed in the diner." Downstairs, the mansion murmured with unease. Doors shut faster when she passed. Men lowered their voices. Word had spread. The waitress who saved the boss might have also seen the killer. By morning, Dante called her again. He stood near the balcony, smoke curling from his cigar. Sunlight cut across his face, half shadow, half revelation. "Sleep well?" he asked. "Under surveillance? Perfectly." He almost smiled. "You're sharper than my men give you credit for." She folded her arms. "Then maybe you should listen to me." He turned. "I'm listening." "There's someone inside feeding information out," she said. "Your driver last night, the one who opened the door, never looked surprised when the car exploded." Dante's eyes narrowed. "You're saying Franco." "I'm saying he didn't flinch." The silence that followed was a gun cocking in slow motion. Dante stubbed his cigar, grabbed his coat, and motioned to his men. "Bring him in." Minutes later, the driver was dragged into the hall, eyes wild, stammering excuses. Illa stayed in the doorway, arms crossed, watching the theater unfold. Franco's voice cracked. "Boss, I swear." Dante held up a hand. "Enough." He stepped closer, face unreadable. "You said you checked the car." I did, sir, but—" "But?" His voice snapped like a whip. "You looked right at me and said, 'All clear.'" "You lied." Franco's knees buckled. 2 guards pinned him down. Illa turned away. She didn't need to see what came next. When it was over, Dante appeared in the doorway. His sleeves were rolled again, expression calm. Too calm. "You were right," he said quietly. "Inside leak. Maybe more." "I told you," she said, eyes steady. Something was off. He studied her. "You keep noticing things I miss. Why?" "Because I still care whether people live through the night." That disarmed him more than any weapon. For the first time, he looked tired. A man carrying too much blood and not enough forgiveness. That evening, as the mansion settled under dim lights, one of his captains approached her in the hall. "You should leave while you can," he whispered. "No one gets close to him and stays safe." "I didn't come here by choice," she said. But if someone's still planning to finish the job, I'm not running." He gave a small, grim nod. "Then I hope your luck's stronger than ours." Later that night, Dante found her standing by the window. Outside, headlights flared again on the far road, the same flicker pattern as before. She said without turning, "You're being watched. Again." He came beside her, voice low. "You sure?" "I'm sure." He exhaled smoke slowly, almost a sigh. "You've got a habit of saving me, Miss Brooks." She looked at him, calm and direct. "Maybe you should start saving yourself." From outside came the echo of a gunshot. Distant, deliberate. This time, neither of them ducked. They just looked at each other, knowing the war had followed them home. The shot that echoed outside didn't fade. It lingered, bouncing off marble, crawling down the halls. Dante's men scattered, guns drawn, boots thundering through corridors. Illa didn't move. She just stared at the rain streaking the glass, calm in the chaos. She'd seen panic before, but this time she wasn't the one trembling. Dante's voice cut through the commotion. "Lock every door. No one leaves until I say so." The guards obeyed instantly. His command carried weight, but there was something new beneath it, a thin edge of fear. He turned to her. "You said they'd come again." "I didn't say when," she replied quietly. Lightning flashed, briefly illuminating the truth in her eyes. Dante holstered his gun and muttered, "So finish this. Tell me who it is." "I can't tell you what I don't know," she said, "but someone close to you doesn't want you breathing by sunrise." He laughed once, hollow. "That narrows it down to half the house." The door burst open, his lieutenant, blood on his sleeve, panting. "Franco's contact just showed up. One of ours. Carlo." Dante froze. The name hit like a knife. Carlo. His cousin. The one who'd sworn loyalty at his father's grave. "No," he whispered. "He wouldn't." But Illa's voice cut him. "Yes, he would. I saw him tonight through the window. He was on the phone when that gun went off." Dante's rage turned cold, precise. "Bring him to me." Minutes later, Carlo stumbled in, dragged by guards. He was shaking. Not from fear, but shame. "Dante, I didn't mean for you to—" "To what?" Dante snapped. "To die instead of you?" Carlo's silence was confession enough. Illa stepped forward. "Let me talk to him." Dante's men hesitated. "Boss?" He nodded once. She approached Carlo slowly, eyes steady. "Why?" Carlo's lips trembled. "They had my son. I gave them roots. Times. I didn't know they'd hit you that night." Illa swallowed the lump in her throat. "Then why are they still coming?" "Because I couldn't stop it," he whispered. "They said one life wasn't enough." Thunder rolled again, as if the heavens themselves disapproved. Dante stared at him, fury and heartbreak tearing through his expression. "Take him away," he said quietly. "No," Illa interrupted, voice rising. "If you kill him, it ends nothing. They'll just send someone else." He turned on her. "You don't get to tell me how my world works." "Then maybe that's why it keeps bleeding," she shot back. The room went dead still. Even his guards looked away. For the first time, Dante looked lost, a man realizing the empire he built was rotting from the inside. Finally he spoke, voice hoarse. "What do I do then?" "You protect the innocent, the ones who never asked for any of this," she said. "Start there." The sound of gunfire cut her words short. Windows shattered. Bullets tore into the room. Everyone dropped. Illa dove behind the table, Dante beside her, returning fire. The walls shook under the barrage. When it stopped, only the rain dared to speak. Dante looked at her. Dirt, blood, and disbelief written across his face. "You saved me again," he said. She shook her head. "No, this time, I stood with you." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. Faint, approaching. Inside, Dante's empire lay silent, his bloodline broken. But beside him, the woman he once dismissed had become the only truth left standing. The mansion smelled of gunpowder and rain. Hours had passed since the shooting, but the echoes refused to die. Guards moved like ghosts, sweeping glass, dragging away what was left of betrayal. Hila sat at the edge of the grand hallway, fingers wrapped around a chipped teacup. Her red uniform was torn, the diner's name barely visible beneath the soot. Dante walked in, slower than before. A bandage crossed his arm, another near his ribs. He looked at her the way a storm looks at the sky after it's done. Emptied, quiet. "You could have left," he said. "I almost did," she replied. "But something told me you'd need a witness." He smiled faintly. "To what?" "To the moment you finally listened." He chuckled, soft and tired. "I still don't know if you're brave or foolish." "Does it matter?" she asked. "We're both still breathing." For a long moment, neither spoke. The rain outside had softened to a whisper, the city beginning to heal under gray light. Then Dante took something from his pocket, a folded envelope sealed with his crest. He slid it across the table toward her. "What's this?" "The diner," he said simply. "And enough to rebuild it." She shook her head. "I don't want your money." "It's not payment," he said. "It's correction." Her eyes met his. Not anger, not pity, just truth. "Then correct yourself first." That hit deeper than any bullet. He nodded once. "Maybe I will." By sunrise, the mansion was quiet again. Hila walked out the iron gates without escort this time. The air smelled like rain and freedom. Days later, the diner reopened. The same neon sign hummed softly in the window, though brighter now, steadier, like it had learned to endure. Customers returned, whispers followed, but Hila stayed the same. Polite smile, calm voice, eyes that carried storms. That evening, a sleek black car stopped across the street. The driver stayed inside. Only the passenger window rolled down. Dante sat there, watching in silence. For a second, their eyes met through the glass. No words, no gestures, just a nod, quiet acknowledgement between two people who had survived the same fire. He drove away before anyone noticed. Hila looked down at the counter she'd rebuilt. A new sign hung above it, hand-painted letters in gold. "Be kind. Be brave." She traced the words with her fingertips, smiling softly. A teenage girl sitting nearby asked, "Miss Hila, is that your motto?" She thought for a moment. "No," she said. "It's a reminder." Outside, thunder grumbled faintly. Not a warning this time, just a memory fading into peace. Would you have shouted that warning or stayed silent?